This is Josh with Star Wars Galore, and today I'm back with another review. I've just finished Phasma by Delilah Dawson, and I wanted to get my thoughts about it. I'm going to have a non-spoiler section, and then I'm going to get into some spoilers. I'll let you know way ahead of time before I get into spoilers in case you haven't read it yet. So, without further ado, let's get it going. My first thoughts when finishing up this book were, wow, that was really solid. So, this book outlines who Phasma is as a character. It makes clear her motivations. We get to see really who she is under that mask. Why she does what she does. There's a great deleted scene from The Last Jedi, and it's a shame that this scene got deleted. But it is an extended version of the fight, the little duel versus Finn, where Finn tells a couple of stormtroopers, "Hey, you know what she did, right? She's the one that turned the shields of Starkiller Base down." And she kills every one of the stormtroopers that hears this. That is the Phasma we get in this story. This is by far the best version of Phasma that we've seen, at least out of the movies, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and the Phasma book. By far, the version of Phasma we get in this story is leaps and bounds better than the Phasma we get on screen. The Phasma we get in this book is the Phasma I was hoping we would get on screen. And we got a little bit more from her in The Last Jedi. We got to see that duel with Finn, but it was way too brief, and now she's pretty much dead again. But I am glad that we have this cool story about her. We also get to see get two new characters. Well, we get a couple more characters, but the story is told through flashbacks. So the stuff that happens on Parnassus, which is Phasma's home planet, that takes place 10 years before the story we're thrown into. The initial story we're thrown into is about Vi, a resistance spy, and a really cool stormtrooper named Captain Cardinal. He captures her and ends up torturing her. So we get Phasma's story secondhand from Vi, who heard it from one of Captain Phasma's acquaintances on her home planet of Parnassus. I believe that my favorite character in this book is Cardinal. He's very complex. He's not just your everyday bad guy. He's not bad just to be bad. He shows a lot of humanity. And Vi is a very compelling character as well, and she does some very unexpected things. The planet of Parnassus in general is very, very interesting. I won't ruin everything for you. If you want to hear more about Parnassus, I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in the spoilers. It's a very intriguing planet, very, very complex planet, and I think it's a great addition to the Star Wars universe. So if you haven't read this book, highly recommend you go ahead and do that, because it was a lot of fun to read it. I believe that's all I got for non-spoilers, and so. Time to talk some spoilers. First, I want to talk about the planet of Parnassus itself. So this is a planet that's been devastated by a nuclear explosion. A mining corporation came and they set up different factories everywhere. And one explosion somewhere led to the complete destruction of this planet. It's so broken down to where in the big wide Star Wars galaxy, where there's been these great ships, there's been hyperspace travel, there's been data pads, communication. We know all of this has been in existence for a long time. this explosion has set back the planet of Parnassus like thousands of years. And that's really interesting to see, especially knowing how we see Phasma in the First Order. It's very interesting to see that she come from a place like this where she didn't even know how to use a data pad. So you have these different bands of people because there's no transportation, because there's no way to communicate. They basically have no idea what the planet is like outside of their little area. The only way they have to walk, the only way they have to travel is to walk. The only way to communicate they have is to walk up to somebody and talk to them. So it makes perfect sense. You have the sky that's basically in this rocky area of the planet. You have a desert area of the planet where you have these different like bases, these different factories that the mining corporation set up. And what's wild is some of them are still operating. So you have like the first factory that they stumble across. The first little set of group set that they stumble upon is these set of droids that are waiting for their masters. They're worshiping them. They're hoping that they come back. All they want is their human masters to come back and save them, give them purpose. I mean, it's been hundreds, maybe even thousands of years since they've seen a human being, and they're just kind of stuck here. Then you have the second group of people that we see that's in this oasis, and they barely have food. I mean, this is a desert planet. They have this oasis. They have this technology that can, I believe they can turn anything into a shirt, but they don't have ways to communicate. They don't have, they do have some speeders, but food. So they have to have these gladiator-style duels to kind of keep the people from revolting. Because I mean, really, the only person that has any kind of food is the Aratu and the people close to him. This is a very primitive planet. And I had a blast just learning about it. And I would really love to go back. One more thing, the beetles. Those beetles are terrifying. They're so cool. They are the perfect weapon to use to kill somebody without anyone knowing. Because they're from this primitive planet. The droids on that planet know what it is. They're able to treat it. The First Order, they've never seen anything like it. So this is the perfect weapon to use to kill Brindle Hucks without anyone knowing. And Phasma and Baby Hucks were able to take advantage of this. Well, that's all I got. That's all I got to say about the planet of Parnassus itself. Really cool planet, and I'm really glad we got to see exactly what it was like in this story. Next, I want to talk about the flashbacks to Phasma. I want to focus in on her backstory. She is a total baddie. And I'm so glad that the story portrays her that way. From an early age, you can tell that she is programmed to do one thing, and that is survive. The very last story we get to hear from Vi is Phasma's earliest story. So this is taking place about, I believe it was 5 years before the events of Brindle Hucks. She gets her whole family killed. She stabs her brother in the leg. All to ensure that she gets to go with the stronger group. She sees that her family isn't going to be able to hold this area. Her parents are stubborn. She sees her only way out as joining the Skyer. And the way she does this? By crippling her own brother. And of course, I've talked about before how this civilization is very primitive. They have some basic medical care, but when something gets stabbed, that's basically it. You have to amputate it immediately. So she sacrifices her brother's leg, his mobility, his ability to fight, which is basically everything on this planet, just so she can survive and join up with the stronger group. And you see her once again when Brendel Hux and the stormtroopers land. She knows that this is her way off of this primitive rock. She knows that the First Order has something better to offer than the Skyer. And when she sees this opportunity, she doesn't think twice to leave the Skyer and join up with the First Order. And I think that that's really the whole point of all these sets of stories. If Phasma were to see something bigger than the First Order, something that she feels is better, is more powerful than the First Order, she is going to join she's going to leave the First Order and join that. And it really gives some context to why she would go ahead and turn off the Starkiller base shields in The Force Awakens. Because she doesn't care about the First Order. She didn't really care about her family when she was a kid. She didn't care about the Skyer. She didn't care about Brendel. And she sure as heck doesn't care about the First Order. All she cares about is surviving. How am I going to live another day? This story does a great job of telling us just that. Some aspects, some just different fun little details I enjoyed in this story. Number one, how Phasma got her armor. I thought that was really cool that she took it from a Nubian starfighter. Basically what we saw our main characters in the Phantom Menace fly around in. And it was a really cool connection to Palpatine. I don't know, since Palpatine is going to be in The Rise of Skywalker in some form, I wonder if this armor or if this ship might play some importance. I don't expect the ship itself, but I don't know, maybe they could recover the armor. Maybe the armor has something to do with Palpatine. I could be grasping at straws here, and it may mean nothing. But I feel like it was important to bring that up because of Palpatine's return. Which, of course, at the time of writing this book, we had no that this book was written. We, the audience, had no idea. So this come out before The Last Jedi. We had no idea that Palpatine was going to be in The Rise of Skywalker. So that's something to think about. It could happen. Maybe not, but it could. Another thing that I liked was the callback to The Force Awakens, how Finn got his name. So his number was FN2187. We saw that happen with these stormtroopers. I can't remember which one it was, which person, but it was somebody in Phasma's Warriors in the Skyer. She gave these stormtroopers names, so their names. So there was one trooper whose number started with PT, called him Pete. That was a nice little callback to The Force Awakens, and it's really cool to see that Poe's not the first person to think of something like that. Another thing was Brendel Hux. I feel like he was a great bad guy. He's, of course, a protagonist. We are cheering for him. I don't even want to say cheering for him, but we're pulling for Phasma. Especially when she's in this the gladiator fights trying to take down the R2. We are wanting them to win, of course, but he's just such a great villain. He's such a brilliant person, and I think it's funny that while he's got the most respect from his troopers. Phasma at least wants him to think that she respects him, so he can get her off the rock. But he is by far the least capable out of everyone. He's the one that's slowing everyone down. He's out of shape. In the midst of these great warriors, I mean, they could kill him whenever he wanted to. But of course, they can't kill him because he's their ticket off the planet. I just thought that was interesting to think about. The only part of this story that I felt dragged on a little bit was when they were having to fight the R2. I don't know. It just felt like that storyline dragged on. They went before that big R2 leader or whatever. They went into that gladiator arena a few times. I was just kind of ready to move on from there by the time they finally did. And when they finally got on those speeders and started zooming away, I was thinking, finally, I'm so glad that they're away from all that. So yeah, this story was very compelling. I really liked how this was told through a flashback. And next, I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that happened in real time to Cardinal and to Vi. As I said before, Cardinal is probably my favorite character in this book, actually. This story was just as much about Cardinal as it was Phasma. So we find out that Phasma is not the first special trooper in the First Order. Before her, we had Cardinal. And even this was another callback to FN 2187's name change to Finn. Cardinal's number started with CD. Therefore, he goes by Cardinal. And I think it's interesting that Brindle only gave him a name. And then he allowed Phasma to keep hers. And of course, Cardinal thought he was special. And then Phasma comes in here. She gets to keep her name all of a sudden. She gets this special chrome armor. The red is cool, but I mean, the chrome is really awesome. And of course, it's from Palpatine's ship too. Sorry, Cardinal. That's gonna win. But I see why he's intimidated by her, and I see why he wants dirt on her. She's obviously no good. She obviously doesn't care about the First Order. Cardinal is this straight-edge trooper. Up until this point, he has done everything by the books, like the First Order wants it. The only defiance that he had, other than holding this prisoner hostage without telling anybody, was keeping something from his childhood. I mean, this guy has been the model trooper and the one who doesn't care about the First Order, who's only here about her. She only cares about herself. She's the one who gets all the glory. She's the one who ends up on all the posters. She's the one getting credit for training these troopers. So I totally get why he wants dirt on her. My favorite parts of this book, while I love Phasma's, my favorite parts of this book were seeing Cardinal and Vi's relationship kind of grow. He's never interrogated anyone before, and it's easy to see. But he shows a lot of compassion towards her. That's why I said earlier, he's really a complex villain. So he is a bad guy. He is on the First Order. But he's really respectful to Vi, and he does a lot for her. And I know he wants information, but I mean, I really feel like that he really cared for this resistant spy a little bit. And he didn't want to kill her. He couldn't kill her. He said himself he's never killed anyone that he hadn't been ordered to. And in this story, it doesn't change. He makes a deal with her. If you give me information to take down Phasma, then I'll let you go. And he does let her go. It's very interesting to see all that take place. I really thought that he was gonna have enough to take Phasma down, and really he does. He's got the beetle. He's got the knife that Phasma used to cripple her own brother. He's got all this information, and of course, Armitage was in on Brindle's death as well. That was a little bit of a twist for me. I probably should have seen that coming. In the Aftermath trilogy, it was kind of set up that Brindle treated Armitage very badly. Armitage was not very fond of his father. So it makes perfect sense that he would be more than willing to let Phasma take care of his father and allow him to be the new big bad in the First Order. Makes perfect sense, but that was still a little bit of a twist. And it just kind of sucked the whole air out of Cardinal. And I hated to see that, because like I said, Cardinal was my favorite character. I was rooting for him to take Phasma down. He's so compelling by the books. I mean, it's hard not to like this guy. It was very sad to see him fail. I was really afraid he was going to die. I'm glad that he's not dead, and I really hope that we get to see him again in something. Vi was also a very cool character. So we open up on her, and she receives an order from Leia to just have a look at something really quick, and she gets sucked into this story because Cardinal has been searching for her, and he finally got her. He knows that she's got dirt on Phasma. He needs that dirt to take her down. And, she's really smart about this. And she makes sure that she gets a deal to where, number one, she gets to live. As long as she gives him what he wants. And just little things that she does. She's a great soldier. So she's walking through, she's looking at everything. She's trying to take all this in and memorize it all so she can report all of it back to the Resistance. Very smart trooper. I was very surprised that she stayed behind. She really worked to turn Cardinal in this story. And I think that she got really, really close to turning him. Who knows? Next time we see him, he might be fighting for the Resistance. Who knows? But she treats this trooper who tortured her with kindness. She knows that coming at Phasma is not a good idea. She knows all this information about Phasma. She knows how brutal Phasma is. She knows that Phasma will cut anyone in her way to get ahead. So she stays behind. She finds some stormtrooper armor. She knows that Cardinal really doesn't stand a chance. And I'm glad that she did, so my favorite character could live. I do want to talk about one more thing before I conclude all this, and that is the final battle between Phasma and Cardinal. I touched on this a little bit before, how Phasma, or how Vi come back to help Cardinal once he was wounded. But the battle leading up to all that was really epic. There was a lot of tension, a lot of verbal fighting between Phasma and Cardinal. They kind of went back and forth. And again, this fight is just really cool. I really don't know how to describe it other than epic. And I thought it was very poetic that the weapon that ends this basically Phasma's last argument in this book, is the same weapon that started all of this. It's the same weapon that Phasma used on her brother. And when she stabbed him in the leg to have him join the Skyre, that's the same one that the Phasma uses to stab Cardinal right in the chest. And we know that it was dipped in poison. I thought that the poor old Cardinal was a goner, and I was so sad to sad to hear about that, because like I've said multiple times, Cardinal's my favorite character in this book. But as I talked about before, luckily Vi decided to stay behind, and she was able to find him and get him off the off the ship and to a facility that could treat him. I'm really interested to see Cardinal again, to see Vi again. Well, that's all I got to say about Phasma by Delilah Dawson. I really enjoyed this story. If you haven't read it yet, again, I really recommend it. And if you have read it, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Next on my list is Black Spire. The Rise of Skywalker comes out in 2 weeks from today. So that means I've got 2 weeks to finish this, to start and finish this book, and I've also got to finish my rewatch of all the movies. I've still got 4 more Skywalker Saga films left: Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. Hopefully I can get all that in the next 2 weeks. I'm in school. Finals week is coming up. Just got to get through the first 2 days next week, Monday, Tuesday, and I can focus all of my time on Star Wars. Well, thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow at SW Galore on Twitter and on Instagram. May the Force be with you, and I should be back with a review on Black Spire very soon. Thank you very much.